Good afternoon. Today I want to give you an update on the current crisis and how the Las Vegas Metropolitan Police Department has been affected. It's been just over 5 weeks now since our state's first stay-at-home emergency directive. A lot has changed, and we at LVMPD have adapted quickly in order to serve the public and to protect the health of our employees. Today we'll brief you on the current trends in crime, our efforts to reduce our jail population, on the wellness of LVMPD's employees, and lastly, the pandemic's projected impact on our budget. We continue to track crime looking at trends and patterns. Since the emergency directives were first put in place, violent crime is down nearly 10%, and property crime is down nearly 27%. The reduction has led to a substantial drop in reported burglaries. I expressed previously I had concern with domestic violence could increase during the declaration of emergency due to people's hardships. We now have enough data to say we are seeing upticks in domestic disturbances and in domestic violence. As of April 11th, domestic violence related calls for service are up 13.3%. That sounds significant, but I want to put it in context. That's a total of 500 additional calls. Domestic violence reported crime as a result, which results in either a report and or arrest, has increased 6.7%, which equates to approximately 9 calls. We will continue to pay attention to these calls and also ensure victims are getting the assistance that they need. In the past weeks, LVMPD has fielded a number of calls for service reporting on non-essential businesses still operating and on gatherings of people ignoring social distancing. We have approached these situations by taking incremental steps, first educating, then warning, and lastly enforcing the directive through citations or emergency shutdowns. And to put that in context, I have some numbers to provide. So that's equated to approximately 800 calls for service. We've issued 205 warning citations, 2 suspensions, and 3 citations, actual criminal citations. Now I'd like to present on the reduction of inmates at the Clark County Detention Center. To date, 4 inmates at the Clark County Detention Center have tested positive for COVID-19. 3 of those inmates have been released. As a reaction to this, yesterday I filed a petition with District Court seeking to reduce the population of the Clark County Detention Center. It was not an easy decision to reduce the inmate population. As sheriff, my greatest concern is for the safety of this community. The pandemic has presented a situation where I had to balance public safety and the health of LVMPD personnel as well as the inmates. To provide you details, I have asked Assistant Sheriff Chris Jones to present the specifics to the order and our prior mitigation efforts. Chris.
Thank you, Sheriff. So over the past 18 months, we've taken a number of steps to reduce our inmate population in the Clark County Detention Center. Through efforts with our criminal justice partners, we've established IA court, initial appearance court, that allows for inmates and arrestees to be seen within 24 hours by a judge. In addition to that, we've increased our house arrest program and now have about 880 on house arrest. With that being said, the COVID-19 issue has caused us to increase or decrease the number of inmates who we house in Clark County Detention Center. As Sheriff mentioned, we have an order and a petition that was signed by a district court judge allowing us to release up to 10% of our population. Today, we had about 2,900 inmates in Clark County Detention Center. That would mean that we would release up to 290 inmates with this additional order. The criteria for the release of those inmates is as follows. The inmates that will be released have served up to 75% of their sentence. Another criteria are parole and probation inmates who are in custody on technical violations only meaning that they have committed no other crimes. The last category is the inmates who are medically vulnerable. As you can imagine, we would like to get those out of our custody because they present an even greater threat of getting COVID-19.
So I think an important piece for the public to realize and the employees that work within the jail is we had mitigation efforts, robust mitigation efforts to address the pandemic in the time that it was presented in March, which resulted in a 30% reduction in inmate population. But we weren't where we needed to be. We had to create the environment of social distancing that was required to address the pandemic, to flatten the curve per se, and the health and safety of both the inmates and the corrections officers within the jail. So the order was required in order to get to the additional 10% needed to create the proper environment for the inmates. So on top of that is my workforce. What's important to me, as well as the safety of the public, is how the workforce is dealing with this pandemic, what the mitigation efforts we put towards the employee to ensure their safety. And I asked Under Sheriff Kevin Mayhill to come forward and speak of that, to include the numbers of employees that have been tested and or with the results being positive. So Kevin.
Thank you, Sheriff. Just like to start off by saying stay home, stay healthy, stay safe for Nevada. We're getting much, much closer to the conclusion of this pandemic. What I will tell you, though, is that the men and women of Metro are what they always are, is they're an incredible group of men and women. They continue to do exactly what it is that they took an oath to do. They're showing up during this time of COVID-19 and working to provide safety and security for our community. As you know, this pandemic does not discriminate, and it affects them, the men and women of Metro, just as it does all of the other great people and citizens of our state. We're very proud of our people, and we're very thankful to them for what it is that they do. That impact to us, however, started out slow, like the pandemic did in so many different places, and ramped up very quickly for us. As of yesterday's numbers, and I want to assure you that we work on these numbers every single day. There's an entire team of men and women working diligently to not only look at the impacts to our community, but to our employees here. Yesterday, we had 127 employees who had been tested for the COVID-19 virus. Out of those 127, we've had 12 positive cases. 99 of them have come back negative. Thank God, none of those positive cases have required hospitalization for our employees, and as I speak to you today, many of them have already returned to work. Internally, we're taking the same measures that everybody else is around the country and stressing to our employees to stay home if they don't feel well. We had a culture for a long time that if you had a little bit of a sniffle and you weren't feeling something, you come to work, you show up, and you do the work that we expect out of you. Today, we're screening for temperatures, both in the jail and every building that you enter. We're encouraging the hand sanitizing, washing of the hands. We have recently instituted a policy in the Clark County Detention Center because of the outbreak within that one module that all inmates will be wearing masks, as well as of yesterday with the agreement of our police unions that all of our employees working within the Clark County Detention Center would now be required to wear a mask. As part of our protocol to reduce the subsequent exposures, 87 employees today are currently home on the mandatory quarantine due to potential exposure or travel history. And we continue to work actively through our health and safety department to get those employees tested and returned back to the workplace. We've also suspended non-essential travel, police-related businesses at our facilities, such as the services we provide at police records here in the building adjacent to us, or our front lobbies at the police station are now closed to the public. However, I want to assure you that all of those individuals are also showing up to work. They're catching up on backlogs. They're working through taking telephonic reports, providing a certain level of service to our community, and they continue to do an exceptional job at that. Like most of our country, we're monitoring and managing our inventory of personal protective equipment. More specifically, masks, gloves, and hand sanitizer. This has been a process that we've been working through with our vendors and other community stakeholders. And I got to tell you that the community has been exceptionally generous with their donations to Metro. It's an interesting area where we never had trouble getting supplies from our vendors, and now we compete on a global level to try to get those very needed things for our men and women. Thank you to those so many citizens and businesses who've donated this vital product to the Las Vegas Metropolitan Police Department. We are continuing to accept those donations of masks, gloves, hand sanitizers, and gowns. There's also been several companies here in the local Las Vegas Valley that have stepped up and been offering to our officers the decontamination of their vehicles on a daily basis, because obviously we come into contact with people that we just don't know whether they have something. And so thank you to those vendors as well. Las Vegas is an amazing community, and they continue to support the men and women of Metro. And the men and women of Metro are people that the sheriff and I are exceptionally proud of, and thank you for all it is that you do. Sheriff?
Thank you, Kevin. So lastly, I want to give you some sort of understanding what our current budget shortfalls are and what we intend to do moving forward to make adjustments as a result of this pandemic. All local government agencies will feel the brunt of this as we struggle to balance our budgets due to lost revenue. At LVMPD, to address the shortfall, we have eliminated non-essential expenditures such as travel and some training. In addition, we have laid off a majority of our part-time employees. Moreover, we have stopped recruiting efforts and implementing a hiring freeze. We will not be filling upcoming vacated positions that occur through attrition. The only intent at this point of hiring through attrition is first corrections officers and dispatchers. Those positions are extremely essential, and because of the welfare of the public in response to calls for service and the welfare of the corrections officers within the jail, it is necessary that we adjust the budget on the policing enforcement side to accommodate the jail. Through the reductions that we have made so far, we have saved approximately $17 million from the current fiscal year budget, and we are starting to reduce expenditures going into next year's budget. We will continue to look at the numbers as they come, such as tax revenue and visitor volume. In closing, the coronavirus outbreak has affected every community in America. We are in a difficult time, but we at LVMPD are focused on the task at hand. That is ensuring the safety of the public and protecting people. I am proud of the way all the first responders have performed, to include our partner agencies throughout the Valley, showing a real commitment to their work and to the devotion of duty. They have been heroic, and for that, I thank them. We are hopeful that this information that we provided today will provide you some clarifications of our current situation and moving forward. So I'd like to take this opportunity to answer any questions that the public may have and or the media.
Sheriff, most of the questions are directed for Assistant Sheriff Jones. I'm going to have him come back up. They're jail related. The first question, Chris, can you please go to the podium so you can answer the question? The first question from Fox 5 is, does this court order set a precedent for other jails in the state or other prisons to release inmates?
So as we were preparing this order, we did reach out to several jurisdictions that we have partnerships with, and they had also been doing something very similar. So whether it sets precedent or not, I don't know, but I do know that it is occurring across the country with our partner agencies.
The next question is from the Nevada Independent. Will inmates under this order be required to pay any bail?
No.
Will inmates released under this order be required to return to jail after the order expires, and under what conditions?
No, the release is permanent.
Will inmates be placed under GPS monitoring or house arrest?
There are some individuals who will be placed under electronic monitoring. That will not be the majority of them, though.
When will releases under this order begin, and approximately how long do you expect that it's going to take to release 10% of the jail population?
The order was signed yesterday afternoon. So at approximately 8:30 last night, we began releasing the population that I spoke of earlier. We still have some that we are releasing, but we anticipate that most of those will be released by this afternoon.
Is the department coordinating with homelessness or housing providers to accommodate inmates who say they do not have a place to go upon release?
Yes, we have programs in place as it stands, long before this issue came up. So we will continue to work within those programs to make sure that people who are being released have somewhere to go.
This question is from Channel 3. What assurances do you have for the public that the community will be safe with the release of these inmates?
I spoke earlier about the 3 criteria for releasing this specific population. Every one of these individuals are nonviolent offenders. We will not be releasing individuals who have been sentenced for violent crimes such as domestic violence or DUI.
All right, Sheriff Lombardo. Are layoffs of commissioned officers on the table in the future if there are more budget shortfalls?
Well, everything is on the table, but currently I'm comfortable saying no. Layoffs, as far as the commission workforce, is not on the table.
Next question. What do you say to people who are concerned about an increase in crime with the release of inmates?
Well, that's understandable. But, you know, through normal attrition or the normal criminal justice process, inmates come and go within the, from being incarcerated all the time. Now, this is an extreme situation, and Assistant Sheriff Chris Jones alluded to it. We are addressing inmates with nonviolent history. And it's important for the public to understand that. Also to understand it's up to 10%. If we cannot achieve that 10% criteria based on the 3-prong approach or the 3 steps that we provided to you today, that will be it. We're going to ensure public safety based on that formula. If we don't get 10% and it require us to increase the number of people to release, which would involve people of violent crime or committed a crime of violence, we will not go to that number. We will address it internally.
Sheriff, do you have any closing comments?
Most importantly, I want to thank the public for abiding by the orders. You know, the numbers I provided on the non-essential businesses and the 10 or more people that are gathering are actually pretty small. I think the public in the majority are respecting the governor's orders, and they understand for us to be successful in the long term versus the short term. I understand the economic issues that we're dealing with. We have to abide by the order because it is precedent or it's science that is providing us that direction, and we have to rely on that. And secondly, the media has been very cooperative in working with us through this pandemic and understanding the decisions we've made as a public safety agency, not just me, the other public safety agencies, and how we are dealing with this and providing that blanket of safety for the community. So thank you.